I'm Jane Green, and this is Crash Course U.S. History. Today we're going to be talking about spies. But no, not the cool Tux and Gadget, James Bond kind of spies, but I mean the men and women that were crucial to help win the American Revolution against the British Empire. General George Washington's network of spies really took off at the height of the war. They collected information from everything from the Brits' battle strategies to their movement of supplies. The most famous of these spy rings was the Culper Ring, and they were based in New York City. In 1778, Washington appointed Major Benjamin Talmadge to be the head of his spy ring and take all precautions necessary to make sure the spy ring remained as secret as possible. Even Washington himself had no idea who was actually involved in the spy ring.
Ooh, I have a question. How was Washington able to communicate with the spies if he had no idea who he was supposed to be talking to?
Oh, me from the past. All of the spy shows and movies that you were obsessed with as a kid have taught you nothing. They used code names. The code names used by the Culper spy ring was a series of numbers, with Washington being represented by 711, England by 745, and New York by 727. There was a total of 747 series of numbers used by the ring for communication. Let's go to the thought bubble. One of the ring members, Robert Townsend, codenamed Culper Jr., was responsible for the acquisition of most of the information. He was an American reporter and also ran a small dry goods store in New York City. This gave him an excellent excuse to learn anything and everything from many different people. As soon as he had gathered enough information about the British, he would send his findings on through letters hidden amongst large orders of dry goods under the name John Bolton, which was code name for Major Talmadge. Another member of the ring, Austin Rowe, would take the letters and ride 110 miles to Nantucket, New York, where he would drop the letter in a field that he had rented for his cattle. The next member of the ring, Aaron Woodhull, codename Culper Sr., would pick the letter up from the field, which just so happened to be right next to his house, and add his own information to it. Then he would look across the bay where Anna Strong lived and would search her clothesline for an arrangement of petticoats and handkerchiefs. This was another form of code used to signal when and where the final member of the ring, Caleb Brewster, had arrived in Nantucket to pick up the letter. The black petticoat on the clothesline would mean he had arrived, and the number of handkerchiefs would represent the exact location of where he was hiding. Under the cover of darkness, Woodhull would sneak off to meet Brewster and give him the letter so that Brewster could row back across Devil's Belt to Fairfield, Connecticut, and give the letter to Talmadge. Finally, Talmadge would pass the letter along to Washington in New Windsor, New York. While this method of relaying messages was effective most of the time, other times it posed quite a few risks, especially when Talmadge was carrying the letter across his portion of the route to Washington. One instance, Townsend and Woodhull had written in the letter that it was possible there would be raids in Connecticut. Talmadge, however, never received the message, and he and about 90 troops were ambushed near Bedford, New York. In the attack, Talmadge lost both his horse and his secret papers for Washington. Fortunately, the papers only referred to the members of the ring by codename. After this event, Talmadge and Washington incorporated more security measures in their messages, namely more codes and invisible ink, the most iconic spy technique in history. The Culper Spy Network wasn't the only organization Washington also had spy forces all across the colonies wherever there were British soldiers. What? It's time for the mystery document? Okay, for our mystery document. Regarding Elizabeth Bergen, an inhabitant of New York, from the testimony of our own escaped officers, it would appear that she has been indefatigable for the relief of the prisoners and for the facilitation of their escape. For this conduct, she incurred the suspicion of the British and was forced to make her escape under these disturbing circumstances. Okay. I think it's General George Washington in the report to the Continental Congress, right? Yes! Well, that was strange. Stan, what'd you do?
Thank you for tuning in to CNN Student News. I'm Carla Azus, and today we're taking you back in time.
No, wait, this is my show. This is Crash Course U.S. History.
Sorry, buddy. Not anymore, it's not.
Stan!
In this age of empires and world powers competing for the best the globe has to offer, it is imperative that the British maintain their American colonies. But as the stakes grow higher as time ticks by, it may be that the British lose some of their most valuable acquisitions yet. Rachel Mixit's CNN.
We believed that these bloody colonials wouldn't be able to hold their own against us, the most formidable army in the world. But it seems that they now have the support of our long-term enemy, the French. But in order to even out the playing field, we've got some spies out there in order to learn their secrets and inner workings.
What caused the rebellion in the first place, do you know?
Well, the colonists were upset because of the taxes we placed in order to cover the costs of the 7 Years' War. Even though we were trying to preserve their land, now they've turned to the people who were once their enemies for support, and if that isn't betrayal, then I don't know what is.
The British had spies too. Benedict Arnold fought for the Continental Army before he defected to the British Army. He used a British spy, Major Andre, to communicate with the opposite side. Oftentimes, to avoid arousing suspicion, his wife Peggy would relay information from Andre to Arnold. This information was sent to Peggy in the form of hidden codes and invisible ink that only she knew about on letters that were passed along the women's circle.
Having spies may be considered cheating, but the real world is full of disappointments, isn't it?
Let me demonstrate for you as I do my last segment.
The war may have been won by generals, soldiers, and politicians, but as any great event can display, it is the behind-the-scenes work that shows whether or not the event will make a lasting impression in history.
Yes, spying on the British became one of the greatest tools in the American arsenal.
Not only did Washington's spies help win the war, but they used the best and most clever means of acquiring and transferring information, including letting women show their skills and capabilities in areas where men couldn't. This spy network was also responsible for creating the most iconic spy culture which is present today as well.
I spy where you're going with this. These spies spied the opportunity to gain advantage, and they took it. You don't need invisible ink to get me to spy the significance of the spy network. I'm Carla Azus, and here's your show back.